Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Pro 632 Radio. Here with Jason and Chris Nelson tonight. We were going to talk nitrous with the nitrous guys, but wasn't able to show. So we're going to switch our gears and change into the rule set that came back out for 2026 to kick off the racing series that's going to happen just not too many days away. Jason, go ahead.
All right, so as you all have seen the rule change, we had a bunch of scuttle on the pro owners group. They took the 50 pounds out of us. Listen, let me say one thing first. I have nothing to do with rule making, managing, nothing. They may ask a question. I put stuff out in the general, like I've done before. Previous to this rule change, I asked everybody how much they could get out of their car. And the first one I asked was Mr. Hood. And Mr. Hood safely said he could take 100 pounds out of his car. I know, Patrick, you couldn't at the time with your engine combination. You couldn't take 100 out, but you were okay with it. You were like, it is what it is. I'll race where I got to race. So when I was asked about it, I said, well, everybody can take 100 out, included Mr. Hood. And that's all that was said about it. So I don't make rules. Please don't insinuate that I make rules, or don't spread the rumor that I make rules, because I don't make rules. I'm just a guy who spends money and time, along with the two other guys that are with me on this podcast, to help this class move forward. If somebody else likes to take over and do it for me, I gladly like to take 4 days of my life back, because that's what this show takes. It's 4 days, whether you think it or not. For 25 minutes or an hour, it takes 4 days. So that's where I'm at with it. I wanted 75 pounds and even 2,500. Years ago, we raced at 25 with a 400. It slowly crept up because, we weren't getting cars to come, and we made it to 25.75, actually 2,600, and they knocked 25 out of us for the 400. Fine dandy. Cars didn't show up. At PRI, people had interest at the PDRA booth, and they listened, and Vinny and whatchamacallit, they just sat there and listened. I mean, 4 guys came over with Mopars from Indy Cylinder Head. They want to get in. That's why we have a 20-pound break for them right now. I was standing right there when Vinny goes, send me over the data what the motor makes. And that's it. So they obviously they sent data to them, and that's what they came up with, what they, that 20-pound weight break. I'm sure it'll probably change plus or minus one way or the other mid-season, like it always does mid-season. Maybe they'll take another 25 pounds off us mid-season. Maybe who knows? Maybe they'll go 40 jet if somebody wants to be the guinea pig and try it. But my combination is like a bunch of others, is optimized for 36. I know Chris Rini, he's all about going 40 jet. That's up to the consensus. I mean, that's up to the rule makers. That's not even up to us as a class. That's where I'm at with it. I said my piece.
So Jason, where do you think the desire? Where do you think the desire for a change came from?
Obviously, there's a big void in time between whoever's in front of us going the fastest, whether it's Pro Street or Super Street. I don't pay attention because we lost Mountain Motor, so they want to fill that void in. I don't think they gave us enough weight off with the current combination we have to get into that 4.0 area consistently. You'll see it in Virginia. You know what I mean? You'll see. I mean, obviously, we already seen 410. Amber went 408, right? Last year in Virginia. Yes. So you'll see more cars go 4.0 something. Go ahead.
Yeah, Melnick went in the 4.0s late. Melnick went in 4.0s late this year in 2025 as well.
Yeah,
what do you guys think? And even some of you guys out there that are listening, what do you guys think that 50 pounds is going to be worth in the 36 jet non-lockup combination? I mean, I can remember, and Patrick, you probably remember this as well, when you go between PDRA and NMCA, it was 100 pounds. That was worth 700. Now it's 700s every time.
Well, we can talk 700s or we can talk $7,000. It depends, right? For me, that weight break is, trying to find every nut and bolt I can change out to get to a little bit lighter. nitrous bottles, nitrous tank. That would be a thing, possibly try for some carbon fiber bottles versus the aluminum bottles I have, reducing the weight. So we can talk cost too, because 50 pounds can take a lot of money to get 50 pounds. And, I haven't run a lot lately, so I don't know how well I can do getting 50 pounds off of me. So it's going to have to come out of the car somewhere.
So I like what you said, because the rule deal, in my eyes, adding weight in an entry level pro category like 632 is always a cheaper.
Excuse me, Chris. David's he's not on backstage, but he just showed up. He's on the whatchamacallit, if you can contact him.
Here, I can try to pull him in. I can't.
Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead while he's trying to.
So I'm with Patrick in the same point of view, that I think the weight deduction was very minimal in performance gain. However, it can be pretty, important as far as cost goes to get that kind of weight out of the car. I mean, let's face it, Jason, you've made the statement many a times that all these cars are an X something, whether it's Pro Street, Pro Nitrous, Pro Boost, Pro Mod, Top Sportsman, whatever you want to say. But that means to me that they're all older cars, not built super light. Myself, as an engine builder, I prefer an iron block in this category for, just to keep the bore round and straight, make a little bit more NA power. I know, like the white Corvette Holdorfs ran back in the day, and the black car, we couldn't get to minimum weight with iron motors, so we ran aluminum engines. And then when the rules moved around a little bit, got a lighter chassis, we were able to go to iron engines in the cars and still make the minimum weight. So these are all things that guys are now having to think about that weren't really a consideration 50 pounds ago. So I have mixed emotions about it. I think it sped the class up 3 to maybe 400s at most, which I'm not sure what that did for the fans. But it could cost guys like, say, Patrick Patterson, to have to spend a bunch more money to try to get to minimum weight and, the best fighting chance they can get.
Patrick, do we need to have Chris call David?
I just sent him the link on Facebook.
I did the same thing, but I don't think he's looking at Facebook too. Oh, there he is.
Hey guys, you there?
Yeah, you're a little dark.
You're a little red.
How are you?
I'm sorry I'm late. I'm on the struggle bus today.
Gotcha.
Don't worry. We live there too. Thanks for taking some time out of your schedule for us. We'll get you up to speed as quickly as we can here. So Dave, owner operator, Nitrous Outlet, why don't you give us a little bit about your company and what you do for some of the racers in our category?
All right. This month is actually our 25th year in business. So it's an anniversary date for us. We started off in late model EFI. Is that my mic messing up?
No, you're good.
You're good.
Okay.
No, you're good.
So we started off in late model EFI, and me being kind of obsessed with racing, we kind of got pulled over to the class racing. We've always really shined at jet restricted type classes, which makes you become very efficient with your designs and your product line that adapts over to other types of racing. And that's a pretty good summary of what we do.
So in a category like ours, where we have a spec 36 and it's an NOS jet that they give us at tech before each and every race and then seal them, how would you approach that, and what makes that kind of rule a special type of system versus just something that goes out the door for any other standard direct port style of system?
Whenever that rule first came out, I thought it was the most ridiculous rule I've ever heard. Honestly, I thought, and I didn't think about how small of a jet a 36 jet is, but in my mind, I'm like, we're going to cause cylinder to cylinder imbalances to different engines. People are going to burn stuff up. This is dumb. And it turned me off to the whole class, honestly, and I just kind of turned my head to it. Last year, I got challenged with the class, And as I started working and adapting a lot of the technology we've designed,
We're losing them.
Hey, sir, we lost you.
Yep, we lost him. David? Hopefully he comes back.
Well,
we
I'll
can
go
go,
ahead and pull him off and wait until he comes back.
yeah, we'll do that, and we can go back to what me and Chris were discussing, and yourself, with the rules.
Yeah. So long story short, back on the rule deal. So we're 25 pounds addition to more than 3 forward gears. I think that gets that differential really close in my eyes.
Mhm.
So those guys are going to deduct 25 and we're going to deduct 50 essentially. I don't know. In my eyes, I think the differential between the OEM non-lockup and the 4 or 5 speed gets real close at that point. I thought it was close-ish last year. And then everybody else that can is going to pull 50 pounds out of their car for an OEM trans equipped car. What does that put Gary Hood at, or any of the NA combinations that might come over now?
They're going to be looking at the
50
rule.
pound 50-pound deduct as well.
Yeah, 2,200 pounds.
Hmm.
David, you back on? Can we hear you?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes,
got
sir.
you. Now. We lost you there when you were talking how you got into the class last year.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Yep.
So for some reason, my phone, where somebody called me, it actually shut me off from the podcast. So
Yeah, put on do not disturb.
Yeah, do not disturb. I suffered from that as well.
Uh-oh. All right. So last year I got challenged with kind of looking at the class and trying to figure out where to make power. I became at that point I kind of understood the whole jet 30. So in my world, a 36 jet is not much nitrous. So wherever you look at that, it kind of took away the whole fear of burning things up. Sure, you may have to adjust some trim cylinder to cylinder, but the grand scheme of things, it's not that bad. But that whole so first of all, the NOS jet is the worst designed jet in the industry,
Ever.
and yeah, and so they've done a real good job at restricting y'all back from that aspect because in a lot of the other classes we started running into jet games, and I think that's really what they were trying to get away from. And
Well,
at least that way, it makes sure that it's one manufacturer design. It's a small jet, so we're not worried about burning cylinders up like we would with some of these bigger tune-ups. And it's working. I struggled to find power. I found it, but I did struggle to find power. And I think that a lot of the guys that come over from other classes down to y'all's world with the jet restricted class, the company's product that they're used to running, it doesn't have to be super efficient. If you need more power, just go up and jet. And that's what makes your class very unique, because all the old school mentality and all the old school designs is doing nothing but holding y'all's class back if you're not adapting to what's new out there.
so funny you mentioned about the jet. So when we had, I call it the Wild West of nitrous jets.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. We got him?
Lost him again.
Did we?
Hello.
David?
Yes, sir. So, Jason, you're talking about the Wild West of nitrous
The
jets.
Wild West of
You there?
nitrous jets. Yeah, we're here.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
When we
Let me just lose volume all of a sudden. Hello.
Yep.
My selling. Can you?
Go ahead, Jason.
So when we were back in the day when we had the Wild West jets, and that's when everybody was doing their own modifications, and long as it, the no-go pin didn't go in, which was 37, and the 37 jet, you were legal to go, right? At one time, the rule said it could not fall on the pin. And
Well, it also it had to be. It couldn't be brass.
Yeah, it couldn't be brass. It had to be stainless steel, and it couldn't fall on the pin. And then it changed where it was stated 37 jet couldn't a 37 pin couldn't fit in a jet.
Correct.
So I went down a rabbit hole and I bought jets from every company, included Dave's. And at the very, very end, I stumbled across his Max jet. That thing's impressive. I built myself a little flow tool to flow jets, made myself a spreadsheet. And when we started testing for the season, I kept putting a different brand of jet in to see what that number flowed and what the car would run. And progressively, as the percentage went up of flow on the jet, obviously I went faster. And then so basically when we came into the season, mid-season, and they handed out those jets, I took them with Vinny and I went to the trail and I flowed it and I said, "This is what I'm going to run. I'm going to run 423 with this." And he's like, "You can't calculate that." And we went out. We went at the end of the weekend. We went 422 with a 7 or something like that. So he was pretty impressed with that. But we went through 90 jets to do it. But going back to David, like I said, his Max Flow jet stuff is in 36 is phenomenal. That stuff there flows just as much as a NOS 43, 42 jet.
You know where that jet design came from?
I don't know, but you're going to
So,
tell me.
yeah. So last year, I think it was year before last, Ultra Street went to a stainless jet only design.
Mm-hmm.
And so their goal was to kind of dodge some of the modified and homemade jets that were going on.
Yep.
So at that point, I just said, "Hey, let's just take the jet that we're already doing and let's just make it a production jet for everyone." And so the difference is so I tell everybody this, right? So a jet is the cheapest part of the system. It does the biggest job.
Yep.
And people have it in their mind that jet should only cost $5 or $6. And whenever you're running thousands of them at a time, you can retail them for that, especially if you're making it out of brass. It's less cost. So those Max Flow jets are made right here in Waco, Texas, and they're spec. And what people got to realize is that most machine tolerances are plus or minus 3,000s, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in a nitrous jet, it can't be that. It has to be exactly what we call it. And that's so those jets have to be very specific. And by bringing that to the market, it gave us a better flow of tune-ups, but it also kind of took those other classes and put them all on the same playing field. With y'all's, it's one style jet and it is what it is. So the other classes that, even in limited and ultra, as a manufacturer, our job is to create the most efficient system and give the racer the tools to be able to do what they do. And they show what the product can do.
So what makes your system as good or better than the competitors?
Anybody you talk to is going to swear up and down that their product's the best or whatnot. And that's natural. Any company should have self pride in what they're building. And if they're not, we have a problem. Off the shelf products, so like whenever we design a product, we come in, we design it to the way that we feel is the best way to machine it and design it. We build the product and then we know what margin we have to have, and that creates retail. And I do things a little bit different. I don't build it to retail. I build the product I want, and if it doesn't sell, then it doesn't sell. I don't want to put my name on something that I wouldn't build to the way I want it. Product wise, I'm very happy with our product. We go a little bit step different. Where we get over into this class stuff, we're taking off the shelf parts and we know what needs to be done to them to make them become the most efficient thing for what the rule set is. So every year I look at the rule sets and I wait for the changes to drop, and I take all the data I've accumulated from all the custom work we do and all the R&D we do throughout the year, and we start looking for that window of where we're going to make more power. And then we just go to town. And sometimes we fail and we throw it in the trash and we start over. But every year if you look at Ultra Street, for example, that's a great example. Ultra Street's a 136 thousandths plate jet for a big block, or unlimited for a small block, and it's a 46 thousandths jet for a direct port. Every year I've put the Nitrous Outlet racers in top, and if you look at that class now, I'm not aware of another nitrous company's product in that class anymore. And it just comes down to the customer service and willing to stand at that flow bench and have your machine shop guys going through parts. You don't make any money off that. Where your money is the guys that are buying production parts. I'm just obsessed with the challenge, and I have to find a happy balance between making money and proving a point sometimes.
Yeah, and to speak to that note, and partially why I even asked you to come on this week is I recently had a customer that Dave and I have in common that we sent the manifold back just to look for something more in the off season, and it went there, and I felt like it was pretty good the way it went. It was from somewhere else, and Dave kept it and wouldn't send it back until it was better. And I'll tell you what, it worked and worked and worked, and I don't know how many mother bottles went through that thing, but eventually it came back significantly better. And it wasn't from just throwing some parts on it and saying, try this. It was from just beating the flow bench to pieces until it was better. And Dave, I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. And, we were pretty happy with the results and the dedication that were applied to that to make sure that we had something better going into the 26th season.
Whenever you look at this stuff, and sometimes you're like, yep, I know exactly what I need to do to that. And then you get it, and there's just a little something different about the system, and you find yourself looking for why you're having that problem. And that customer there, I spent weeks chasing a problem that I would have never factored to be a problem. And there was times where he called me and said, hey, if this doesn't work, what's our next step? And I'm like, I promise you, if you bear with me, I'll make it work. And so the difference was, whenever that system originally came in, it didn't flow bad. He already ran good. And our goal was to find more. So the first thing we did was flow what was on there on our flow bench. So we had, it's just like a dyno. They all kind of read a little different, And so your goal is to take what you have, so you have a solid comparison, and then you go to town. All these jet restrictions and bottle restrictions, made feline size restrictions, they all come into factor. And as you increase that nitrous jet, what you use on a 36 jet versus a 46 jet to get the same results and increase becomes completely different. And there's not it's kind of weird, like the data. And I can tell you that we were working on another system that had a 36 thousandths jet in it. And I took that same data that I had gained from testing on that, and I put it on the guy that is mutual friends with us, and I ran into a roadblock. And I was confident I was going to flip that thing in a week. It took me 3 weeks. We literally I had guys on it every day, all day long, scratching our head. And we would go home so frustrated because we weren't getting nowhere, but we weren't going to let it whoop us.
Yeah, and I'm glad you didn't. That worked out. I've got a question for you, and it's a little bit of a technical question, and share as much as you care to, but it's something I always was curious about on the flow bench. High bottle pressure in pounds per hour versus the quality of nitrous you get without the phase change at lower bottle pressure in exchange, lower temperature. Where do you feel like that threshold is for a lot of these guys?
So in a world where we're not jet restricted and we got, 6 or 7 kits on it, about 1,500 horsepower worth of nitrous or more, I like to run anywhere from 875 to 925, right?
Sure.
Generally, there's a happy medium. If you can be around the 900 to 875 to 900 pound range, the molecule's more rested. it's still more compressed because it hasn't started to energize and expand the molecule. That's what creates pressure, and as a result, it will have less pressure drop going down the track. And with a nitrous car, our first half of the track is where our ETs are, and we tend to get outran on the top side if we didn't do our job in the low side. So if we can maintain less pressure drop, we have better performance on the top end. So as we get into the bigger systems, we're trying to find that happy medium between a good molecule and less pressure drop. But I can go up in jet size if I need more power. So in a world like Pro 632, if we took and ran lower bottle pressure, yes, we would have better quality nitrous, but we're not going to move as much of it through there. So there's a happy medium between that. Now, I have guys that I flow stuff at 950 all the way to 1,000. And if you think about it, back in the day, we always said anything over, anything over 1,000 to 1,040, it's going to be terrible. And in that world, it was. But whenever we're in a jet restricted thing, if it becomes a happy sweet spot. I have some cars where we can get the car to work very well at 1,000 psi. It doesn't flow any more power on the flow bench, but the car runs faster. And the reason why is because we're not knocking all the teeth out of it down low. But then I have cars that it's so mean that we're having to run that 1,000 psi. We're having to knock the teeth out of it, and we can't make up for it on the, we can't utilize that month that we're so. It becomes a happy balance between the car and the tunability, even playing with the hertz on the solenoids. What? Yes. So I'm sorry. So with the pressure versus
Nitrous quality.
the quality of nitrous. Yeah. So if you think about think about code nitrous, right? I spent a lot of time working with people on the code nitrous when that really first started to hit. And in my mind, my goal was to be able to sell that to everybody. But the temperature swing, so you can't even convince guys not to use a friggin' nitrous bottle these days, much less, a torch. Because they don't understand a flash heat versus a saturated heat. So to try to get them to understand controlling a 30 or 40 degree temperature range, I found myself talking to people out of the car because I knew they were going to blow it up than what I was going to sell.
But boy,
So-
it made some power.
Think about man. So think about it like this, right? The nitrous molecule.
And we're done.
Tune in, Waco. Dave, you're locked up, buddy.
One
So,
just sec. There we are.
Here
So
we go.
can you count?
Yeah.
All right. So if we have a compressed molecule, it's going to move more through the system, right? And that's what the code nitrous achieved. As we heat that molecule up, it's going to expand, and that's what creates pressure. I tell everybody with nitrous, it's about with jet restricted classes, it's about moving as much volume through that orifice. So if you think about it from an aspect that you're in a crowd and everybody behind you is shoving you, it's like trying to push you through that hole faster. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So we want to hit it with volume, and we need to have pressure with it in a jet restricted. So now we got to find that happy medium between a quality nitrous and pressure. I know I just talked circles. I hope that figured it out. But so there's a happy swing there, and we have to figure it out between how the car's set up. And it could be gearing, it could be just what the car makes on power versus the suspension and getting it down the track surface. If we can add pressure to it and get after it in the first 330, then that's what we need to do. And if we're yanking all the teeth out of it to accomplish that higher pressure, we're going to run better at lower pressure.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Nitrous will phase change somewhere around 96 degrees and go from a liquid to a gas. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, I can't. It's like 1,040, and I can't remember the temperatures swing off on that.
Okay.
And a lot of people get caught up on that boiling point. Um, and what I've came to realize is it's not always about uh, that area. A lot of times it's the expansions and restrictions within the flow of the system. Um, so we tend to try to think about it like this. If you take a car and if you look over in the Ultra Street stuff, if I add a second bottle, I pick up a lot of power. And getting those guys to understand why, and it's because we're packing the system with more volume. So in some cases, it's like it acts as a cushion. Even running some of these running an 8 AN feed line, it becomes like an accumulator for the nitrous, and it helps prevent the pressure drop. It helps prevent the pressure drop from happening.
You ever run into on the multiple bottle setup, which we're not allowed to run, we're limited to a single 15-pounder. You ever run into a scenario where you have a dominant bottle and it'll make kind of siphon the non-dominant bottle?
Yes, almost every setup that we put a dual bottle in is normal to. Okay, I'm sorry. You're going to have to let me deal with this in a minute. Okay, go make yourself busy. So the in the uh, what tends to happen is it's like this, right? So the passageway opens in one bottle, and now the other bottle is just maintaining that pressure. And it's kind of like in my mind, I've never been able to prove this, but in my mind, once the nitrous flow starts throughout that one bottle, it has the dominant passage. So whenever you pull those cars out of the bottles out of the car and they're sharing a main feed line, you always tend to find one has used more nitrous than the other.
Agreed. Now, shifting gears a little bit to flow an existing system. Do you guys at Nitrous Outlet work on other people's manifolds that you did not plumb?
I battled that for a long time, and I've tried to do it several times. And here's the problem. Here's the real problem with doing that. I have OCD. I'm very specific how I want things done. I don't like a lot of the other product designs that are out there, and I don't like bad mouthing other stuff. The problem with that is whenever a used system comes in or somebody else's product, I don't have the products readily available to match. So let's say it's a nozzle, right? And the nozzle is cracked or the tube has fell out of it or whatever they got going on with their design. I can't just run over to the shelf and grab it. If they're using the world's worst jets, like your stainless NOS jets, and I don't keep those on the shelf because they're junk. I don't need them. So now I have to call Summit or somebody else, and I have to order some more jets. So that stops progress. Whenever you look at we run everything by a calendar. So whenever we get behind on a job, that pushes every job behind. So, and you're only charging X amount an hour. So you have to be very efficient at what you do and have a happy medium between not sacrificing quality, but being efficient at getting to the goal line. Most used systems that come in have the first thing to do is if you take guys think, well, just throw it on the flow bench and flow it. Well, we have a process where we always leak test them first, and 90% of them are leaking. So we'll pressurize the system. We spray soapy water on the flares, all the connections. You'd be amazed at how a lot of that stuff, even from other name brand places, that just it doesn't meet what we want. Right? Doesn't mean we're any better. It just doesn't meet what we think is better. And you tend to waste your time if you don't start off just tearing that system apart, getting all the old paste out of it or Teflon tape or whatever they got going on, checking out the pistons and the solenoid, making sure the coils are functioning correctly. So you got a whole inspection process there. Most guys don't want to pay that whenever they got 6 or 7 kits on the intake. In a world where we only have one, it's not so bad. But when the more kits that are on those intakes, the worse. So over a period of time, every time I tried to do a buddy a favor, And yeah, sent it to me. Man, I always ended up just losing money, and
Yeah.
and so now we won't even work on somebody else's product. We keep busy with enough of our own that if the customer we're working with has something prior, I get it. We'll sell them components, but I'm not going to bring it in and try to find power in it, or try to even put together tune-ups.
So if we were to send you a
What's the average
manifold,
cost of somebody sending a manifold in for 632 and having it refitted with your stuff?
What's
let's
that
say
now?
let's say a dry nitrous system for 632, what's the average cost of getting something like that plumbed up and flow tested?
Oh gosh, I never do sales anymore. So
Okay.
every time I try to guess at what we're charging, I'm out in left field. So, uh,
Well, what I
most
can
of the,
tell you from my experience with your company and most others, everybody's in the same ballpark. I mean, from a cost standpoint, like there's no one guy that's, leaps and bounds more expensive or one guy that's much, much cheaper. Just trying to paint a picture really of, what can guys expect when they're trying to maximize a system for a niche class like ours, to spend versus like a box stock, plumb it yourself kind of situation.
I know that we charge, and this is me thinking out loud, right? Last time I did a quote, I think we charged like $250 to do nozzle bungs if we need to. The difference there is I don't like the weld-in prefabricated nozzle bungs that we even sell. The problem with using those is whenever you weld, they're going to move. And the first part of laying out a system properly is that nozzle is exactly the same depth, the same pitch, the same straightness. That's going to determine every bend in that nitrous system from that point. So we tend to put it on the mill. We'll knock a hole through the intake where we want the bung. We take solid stock, we weld it into the intake, and then we go put it back on the mill. We deck it at the height we want, and then we drill and tap it. Right. So now we got a straight hole. And then we come in and cut the inside of it out. So whenever you look at an intake that has a prefabricated nozzle bung, if you flip it over and look in the runner, you'll always, depending on how good of a job they did, most of the time you're going to see a line, a circle all the way around that nozzle bung. And does that make it work any better? No. It's just again in our way we want it a certain way, and
Yeah, it's
so
fit and
we
finish.
yeah. So the way to do that correctly and then go in and re-clean up that runner and everything, I think we charge $250 for it. Plumbing, I want to say we probably charge around $400 to plumb an intake. Uh, I think dry is like 276 if I had to guess.
Okay.
So we charge a nozzle, for the machinist, and then it goes into the plumbing room, and then we figure out each job how long it takes to do that, and then we charge, and then we add on if we're hardlining the purge between the solenoids, and then we go over to the flow bench. A jet restricted intake, one tune up is normally about $400 on a dry setup. In a normal world, it would be like 400, and it came with 4 tune ups. The reason why a jet restricted tune up is because it's never wham bam thank you. It's okay. We know that it should be in this ballpark. We've done enough work that we know where something should be within the ballpark. It's never the exact same number. It could be 10 or 15 horsepower difference sometimes. And you may scratch your head and keep reflowing it, and it is what it is. The flow bench in our case has a Holley dominator on it. We use load cells to measure the nitrous side, and we use flow meters to measure the fuel side. Um, I have pressure sensors all over it, so I can measure pressure drop points. Uh, all that stuff kind of tends to help. We can measure solenoid performance. We can play with hertz and see what that's doing to the system versus the amount of nitrous that's coming through it. Um, Solenoid placement in the system from a plate system. If you look over at my Ultra Street stuff, all of my plate systems have 6 hoses from the solenoid to the plate. And the reason why is because we got so much jet on it. And first of all, I try to do everything we can with motor timing. And then there becomes an offset to where you have to do a little bit of progression on the solenoid, but the motor timing is the most repeatable thing. A solenoid is a very raw mechanical part, really, and just because you're telling it to operate at 40% don't mean that's what it's doing. And so with Hertz, we tend to, back in the day, everybody said a trash can should be 15 Hertz. All of our plate systems are 20, 18 to 20. And they have a 189 solenoid. Most trash cans back in the day were like a 154, if I remember correctly. Our standard trash can's a 189. I mean, a 178. And then we take that solenoid, we change the can, we deck the piston, and we open up the orifice, and now it's 189. We also moved the inlet fittings up instead of it having to come in and then make a turn. All those are things that we've just found areas that increase flow but still maintain the quality of the nitrous. Whether it's feeding out into expansion ports from different size lines, there's some tune-ups it'll gain, some it'll lose. All year, every job we do, we note every change we did in that system. And so as we tend to get into, and I keep using Ultra Sheet, for example, because I have so many years there. The amount of, it's like a tuner, it doesn't mean that something else is better than the other, but how to get to the finish line a lot more efficiently because you have all that data in your computer to make it happen. And sometimes you come across a car that wants a little bit something different, but the end result is still the same if you follow that guideline. Well, whenever I got asked coming into Pro 632, some of that data didn't adapt over because it's a much less jet. And so I had to find myself again, which means that and the first customer that sent me their intake, I flat out told him I couldn't promise him I would find a gain because I didn't know. And he was willing to give me a shot. And he's got our sticker on his car. So I'm pretty sure that he's more than happy to say, it's Chris Reaney. And he's being very good to us. And so as we keep trying to find power with those guys that work with us, as I found that power, and as long as I'm not, so I make sure that I'm not crossing over, if that makes sense. So let's say you give me an idea, I find power, I don't bring it up to the other racer, because that was your idea. If they see it on your car out in the pits and they call me and ask me to build that, I'm going to build it. Right.
Absolutely.
But it's just, I started out in the street racing in the grudge world, and you're helping a lot of the same guys. You got to make sure you don't cross that line. So the advantage to that also is in the past, I've had customers approach me with ideas and ask me if I would do it. And the deal always was, because first of all, there's no way they're going to pay me the amount of hours that it takes to stand there and figure it out. So the deal has always been, I have a year. You have 1 year to dominate your class. And then I use that moving forward. And that's always worked very well for us. And I've not ever had a customer or talk that I've crossed that line and taken the data that they were involved with and carried it somewhere else. So I make sure as those plans come up, I don't cross it over. And that's the thing with that is I can't own all these cars and all this knowledge and all that. So you're only as good as the racer you're working with, and the racer's only as good as the product and knowledge you're supporting them with. I feel like that's a very important line for whenever you're looking at this, and the jet restricted classes are the most important to be very careful to what you say and do.
Yeah, I know as you gain some more 632 customers, and you spoke of Ultra Street a lot, one thing that you'll really come to love about 632 is it's all nitrous cars, so you won't have this new turbo rule change come in there and kick you in the butt and make you a non-competitive all of a sudden because of something that they're doing all of a sudden. So kind of a level playing field at 632 with everybody having the same nitrous and the same nitrous system, same combination in essence. One thing I wanted to ask you, and I'm going to make it a little bit brief because we're getting long-winded towards the end of our normal time frame, but we talk a lot about flow. What do you consider it takes in pounds per hour of nitrous to make 1 horsepower?
I use a divider of 3.6.
Okay. So I've always had 375 in my head. So we're ballpark-ish. So in essence, just to make this some simple math for guys out there, if you have a manifold that comes in with a 36 jet, let's just say it makes 1,300 pounds per hour, and you take that thing and it leaves your place making 1,372, you've just picked them up 20 horsepower, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So guys, you guys that are watching out there, you want to worry about freshening up your engine, over the course of the year, what can we do to make it better? At these, is ironed out as these engines are, 20 horsepower is very, very expensive in the engine. 20 horsepower in that nitrous manifold may be the cheapest, best money you ever spent. So just keep that in mind as you move forward as well. So that being said, would you recommend a guy to send a manifold, even if you've tuned it up and it's max effort, for a freshen up at the end of the year? Put plungers and stuff in the solenoids, or is that something they can service themselves?
So I'm about education. And so and my job first is to read the customer and not give him too much knowledge to where he actually causes problems for himself. So you have to measure what is that customer's ability before you start feeding certain amount of data. Something on servicing a solenoid is so simple that there's some people that can't handle something like that, but the most racers can. And so I want to educate them how to check it, especially during race season. And I always encourage them to keep spare pistons and coils in the trailer. My job is to teach them what to look for whenever something's acting silly, so they can catch it before it's not working right. The end of the year, so the solenoids that we have now tend to last a long time. Eventually they'll start nippling. Your 189 solenoid, it has such a big orifice and such a small seat that it's going to have more wear on the piston. So every year to go,
you'll start seeing like a nipple on the end of the plunger.
Correct. And as that nippling starts happening, it starts pushing the center down into the orifice, which is blocking flow. And sometimes what will happen is if you have a solenoid on what I call the brink of opening or not, so as you increase the orifice coming out of the solenoid, think about it from a hydraulic standpoint. It's trying to suck that piston back down, right? So the liquid nitrous is rolling through the orifice and it's pulling the piston. So the coil has to be able to overcome that. And that's the reason you'll see a nitrous solenoid work fine at 900 and now it won't work at 950 because it started to nipple, and you're looking at blips in your graph trying to figure out, why is a solenoid acting that way? It's never done this before. And you pull the piston out of it and it started to nipple because it changed the seat height. And like our 189 solenoid or even the 125 solenoid, they're on the brink of what that solenoid is designed to do. It's got as much coil as it can have on there. And we've increased flow to pull down on that piston. We have to keep them maintenance to make sure they don't start giving us a problem later. I do have some customers that every year they know that, and they call me. If I haven't called them, they've been with me for a long time. They call me to ask me what I found this year. And that's whenever we relook at it. And the rules readjust every year. I've switched Ultra Street from plate to direct ports 3 or 4 times. It just depends on where I find the power.
Sure. And correct me if I'm wrong. I know on like Peter Paul stuff, who manufactured most of the operators for the solenoids for years for most everybody, I think that plunger only lifts like 25% of the orifice. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you can change that. We come in and you don't want to machine the top of the piston. You want to machine the face of the piston. And so, but there's a happy science there of how much you can take off of it. Whenever you machine that face, now it's opened up the flow path that it's going through there. But now you got to do something with the coil, right? Because so there's little changes, and then there's ways to manipulate the flow path through it. The relationship I have with Peter Paul is really unique because I understand solenoids very well. And some of the solenoids I've designed, their engineers said it shouldn't work. And then I send them one and I have them. So if you look at our 189 solenoid, I used to take a 178 and machine all that and move the orifice up. I finally got tired of doing that and I sent it to him and I said, just machine me a base this way. And so if you also look, all the aluminum solenoids we have, Peter Paul makes them for us. As far as I know, we're the only nitrous company that they make aluminum-based solenoids for. And that's because I was willing to put forth the work to do it. They're a pain in the ass because now we get them in and they used to be roll stamped where they're stainless. And now we have to laser etch all of them in-house. So as soon as they come back in, we tear them all back apart. We run them through the laser, and then we put them all back together. So, which also puts together another inspection point. Whenever I first got involved with Peter Paul, it was probably about 23 years ago. The manufacturing specs have gotten better. Remember how we talked about the plus minus 3%?
Yes.
Well, the reason why we call our 125 solenoids 122s is because whenever it came from them, that was the smallest orifice we sometimes got. And so whenever we got into a situation where it was jet restricted, we would always go in and remachine. If it was, 3,000 under, we would open it back up to 125. And I reached out to John Sears back then and explained that. And so we also had an understanding that if somebody bought an off-the-shelf solenoid and it was 2,000 the other way, he understood, hey, that's just a manufacturing thing. Well, they've tightened that tolerance up because as we started meeting and talking about things, I was like, hey, this really ain't a great thing, so it's being beneficial. But if you think about back in the old days, everybody was using Jim sensors and Parker Skinner. In my mind, Peter Paul builds the best product. If you know what you're doing, you can call them and tell them exactly how you want that solenoid made. Now, if you don't know what you're doing and you tell them how you want it made and it doesn't work, well, that's on you, so they also have their off-the-shelf part numbers.
Sure.
The quality with the product that's coming out of their facility is pretty much the same. You just got to know what you want.
Sure. Respect for your individual desire.
Correct.
Well, Dave, I thank you for your time, and I hopefully that gave everybody some insight on what you can do and what you can expect and what you can even find as you try to manipulate your manifold within the rules, because that's ultimately what we're doing. You can show up with some stuff that it's out of the box that you've been up yourself and, be in the ballpark. But when you're trying to bring this thing's neck for every horsepower you can get, asking your engine builder, hey, I need more, we just got to find it in every place. There's not 100 left in anything. It's going to be 5 in 20 places, or maybe even it flow test in the manifold 20 in one place. So I think those things are all key when guys sit there and think, oh, I'm not competitive. And then you just maybe listen to what we talked about today and make sure that you're doing all that you can do to make your combination competitive from all points of view. So
I want to throw one thing in there before we get off without saying too much, but it's not just in the manifold. It's from the bottle valve all the way through the system. Everything has to be considered. And then also your bottle heating technique, how you're putting the bottle in the car. There's a lot of steps there to improve the performance whenever we're talking every bit of performance matters.
And there's definitely some bottle pressure stabilization techniques out there that we don't need to share with everybody. We'll keep some things in the treasure chest.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Everybody, on the internet knows how to find you these days, and thanks for supporting our category. We're trying to spotlight as many guys that help the 632 category as possible, and I know you're one of them.
Well, we sure appreciate it, and we appreciate that. We're helping a few customers there in that class now, and some don't want to be mentioned, and that's okay. But I do appreciate the guys that are trusting in me. That's right. And I do that in a lot of, there's other cars with other stickers on it that we help as well, and I'm sure it goes the other way around as well. So you'd be amazed sometimes what's going on back there, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to us. We're gaining knowledge and experience every time we take a new job in.
Certainly. Well, thanks again for your time. Jason, if you got a few minutes, maybe we'll finish up our rule change talk that we had initiated earlier. Thanks again, Dave. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think where we broke free on the rule chatter was me expressing my unsolicited opinion that the 25 pounds added to the 4 and 5 speed probably got that really darn close. I don't think there's a big differential at the 3-speed deal with a drive unit, but that's all a debate. The 50 pounds off, hopefully as many guys can accommodate that as possible. And and we probably see a few handful of hundreds performance gain over the course of the season due to that, along with a couple numbers of natural progression. So, I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit faster performances out of these cars based on the changes, and hopefully based on the efforts like you expressed earlier that we've been making with the podcast, and just starting to spread some awareness, get some attention to the class, that we see a few more cars out there. And that's really what I'm hammering on, is I want to see the car count come out there. So if you guys can share everything that we're talking about as much as you can, let's spread some positive stuff on this owners group. I don't follow it because I'm not an owner, so I stay off of there. However, I hear about it all the time, and let's just try to keep it as positive as possible. If you don't like what you see, just disengage. The rules are in print. I think they're going to be what they're going to be. I feel like the rule makers feel like it's easier to make a small change and then give some more, rather than to give too much and then take it away. So keep that in mind as you complain, that if you don't like it, it may not be the end of it, but go out there, engage, get racing, try to run up to the maximum potential of the rule set that you engage in, and then start complaining. But if
let me cut you short there, quick. So I want to go over a couple of things before. Sound like you're getting ready to close up for the night. Brian put up there. I'll highlight it. Brian put up there that he's disappointed that the conventional head 588 combo is gone. Brian, I don't know why it's gone.
I agree. I think there
anybody who uses it.
Yeah, but it was I don't know. In my eyes, it was something that was very, very intriguing. If I was to build a new car, I would really like to test that combination with a power glide in it, because that got an additional weight break, and try to run as ultra light as possible. I just was always intrigued, kind of the Billy Glidden effect, see what you could do with the ultralight combo and how far that could take you. I don't know if it can get all the way there, but a conventional head motor can make 1300, on a good one. Those things like an ultra street, like Dave was referencing earlier, are bad to the bone. They haul ass. And I think you get real light with that. So it was something I was intrigued by, definitely as an engine builder, to see somebody come out with a max effort of that combination. Kind of stinks it's gone. We need some variations out there. We got a little bit of a Ford Chevy Mopar thing looming, as a rivalry
with it. So they probably just went, that's not, we haven't teched the car when a 588 in it forever. So let's just get off the sheet,
yeah, that's fine.
Going back to the owners group stuff, Tom Jarvis expressed his opinion about, evidently he can't get under 2585. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. 2585, and I think it's got a 110-pound driver in that car.
Well, all I can say is, just keep working at it. You're never going to get there at home. You'd be amazed how fast you can get by running your car, and how it'll never pick up by not running it.
But here's the question I was trying to get to. Everybody had asked questions like, is that a steel body car? Is it a mild steel car? Is it, you know what I mean? Short to nuts. The thing's is a fiberglass truck. It's chromoly. According to Tom, it's got a ton of titanium in it. And it's got carbon drive shafts. I don't know if he's got carbon brakes on it or whatever else he has you, but Tom, majority of us are having a hard time that truck can't get down to under 2585 with tower in it.
I know who built the truck. And he was on the SFI rule committee and stuff like that. And it's got a lot of tubing in it, based on everything else I've ever seen that gentleman had built in the past. So maybe it is heavy, but I mean, like Patrick said earlier, he's going to show up and support and keep chipping away at getting some weight out of his car. And, at the end of the day, there's going to hopefully be 16 or more guys show up, and one's going to win. But hopefully the rest of those guys still found a way to have fun along the way, not winning. I mean, I mean, for some people, and it's like camping with their car. Like where would they rather be with their motorhome to watch a race, get to engage, walk around, see all the other cars? I mean, have fun. Like it isn't. I mean, I'm competitive as they get. Don't get me wrong. I want to win at everything. However, I also feel like it needs to be enjoyable because it's not going to be a moneymaker. So get that out of your mind. So it better be fun. So whether you're a couple hundreds behind because you can't get to minimum weight, you keep chipping away at it, and eventually you get there. Just got to come out and participate. Or like we were looming at the end of last year, we weren't sure we were even going to have a place to race. So that's a much bigger complaint because we weren't given any support. The class count was dying. We didn't get asked back to Bradenton because we had 7 cars show up at the last race and, didn't put on very good performance. So
they didn't have a whole bunch of Pro Street cars at the last race either. I mean, they had.
And you got to really ask yourself too: is the 35 pounds of weight that you're carrying being overweight? We've already spoke on that. Maybe that's going to be a couple hundredths of a difference. Is that all you're missing? Or I mean, because if that's not all you're missing, then kind of got an empty complaint there. If you're within a couple hundredths of everybody else and you're carrying 35 or 50 pounds extra, now it's a pretty legitimate deal. Maybe you go back and present a good case for, a weight change for next year, but you got to do it from a point where you have the grounds to stand on because you're out supporting the category as well.
Well, the last thing I want to touch on before we close this up, and, a lot of people don't care for the person, but Patrick Barnhill actually posted one last comment on the whole topic of everything that was going on. And I know a lot of people kind of shut it down after going on like 30 text messages back and forth on it. I'm just going to read it real quick and I'm done for the night. Guys, the top teams don't race on unlimited money. It's far from this. Most of us are running used cars that will race in some other classes at one time, which I had expressed before. Our Camaro, which is, the Greenbrier car, is 10 years old now. Most engine parts.
Yeah, that was the ex Chris Powers Pro Stock car.
Yeah. Most of the engines parts cost the same whether you're competitive or not, which is correct. Parts are parts. It's really more about what you choose to purchase. A transmission is $20,000 investment with a torque converter, regardless of which style you choose to race, except for a Liberty. If you went with a Liberty and a drive, right, that's more than $20,000. We are actually running a used transmission in our car. A real separation of the class is the small details, which I agree. It's figuring out how to make your chassis 60 foot properly with a 36 jet, as David just mentioned, right? That's it's the 60 foot 330 race. Testing several different stages and gear ratio package to make the car accelerate as quickly as possible. It's just spending time to maximize your current program with the parts you have. This is evident when you see teams consistently pick up ET all season long. That shows a team putting in significant effort to get the most out of their program. It takes so much more than money to win in this class. Two different types of racing I do, and I see the same mentality in a lot of teams in both types of racing. A guy thinks he goes out and he spends $100,000 on his program, and everybody else spent $25,000. He feels he should dominate the year because he spent the $100,000. It doesn't work that way. You can have the $100,000 and a shitty driver, or you can have $50,000 and a badass driver. I'm pretty sure the badass driver that leaves 000 something all the time is going to nail your big dollar combination in shitty driver, in the weeds. It's just the way it's going to be. It's a 50-50 shot when we roll up there. You and your team has been my biggest fun ride. It's a rival between me and Walter. We all know it is. It's a running thing between me and Walter, and it's a friendly thing between me and Walter. And I get him on the tree, he gets me on the backside. That's how those races are determined between me and him. It's fun, but every once in a while, the pretty car gets the sleigh, the other car, and that's just the way that is. And that's it.
The nicest way you've ever been called ugly.
Yeah, I was trying to think of every other word to use but that. Right? Tetanus shot. But it's a scalded dog, right? The thing runs like a scalded. You can't knock it down, right? I mean, just because it ain't got shiny paint. I mean, if I can't be fast, I got to be pretty. So I'm pretty. So not me, the car. But other than that, but don't count yourself out, because we still got that one guy that no matter what shows up and he races every race, and he's just happy to tell his story at the top end at the end of every race.
He's
Mr.
my
Hood.
favorite. Yeah,
And
he's my favorite.
I hope we have many more years left of Mr. Hood racing with us. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But you know, it's you know, me and Tom went back and forth about, you know, he's there to win, and he needs to be competitive, and he needs to be at that level.
You got to be there to win, though. I mean, I really harp on that all the time, but you're not winning in the shop, you know.
No, you're not winning the shop.
I mean, maybe I don't know. I just don't.
So,
I don't think that way. But I want to touch on Patrick's statement. First of all, I'm impressed that he got all that in with no cuss words. That's very un-Patrick-like. So somebody wrote that for him. Second of all, I couldn't agree with him more. Everything he said, to summarize what he said, that is just effort. And I agree. The effort is the small details, like he spoke on, that makes the difference. It's the testing between races. It's all that stuff. I know from talking to you, Jason, you're going to go test next week. David Cook's in town testing, and he's got another scheduled test session after that. The guys that want to make the effort to put themselves in a place to win, they're doing it right now. You know, not any wasted effort on the internet, just trying to get to the racetrack. So I say it time and time again. Maybe I offend some people. I don't really care. You got to put the time in. You got to go do it. You can't complain. You just look at the rules and go out and tackle it as best as you can, as quickly as you can. So, I mean, everybody has the same rule book right now. If you think something is a disadvantage to your combination, switch it. We've all got the same rule book to build a car or a truck by. So, you know.
Yep. No.
Adjust accordingly. I'm also excited to see the 4,800 bore space Mopar combination get a little something to maybe attract some of those guys. They can be fast.
Well, supposedly,
allegedly, Rini ran one of those fast one day. Although no one's ever seen it, but he says they can be fast.
That guy.
All right, guys. Hey, we're gonna go ahead and close this up because
It's your bedtime. All right.
Continue talking for another 3 hours. Hey, all the complaining about
they recommended.
Hey, be quiet for a second, Chris. All the complaining about your picture not being on the stream when I shut it down. It's your own fault. You want to fix it? Send me a picture. I'll put it on there. I'll edit it. So with that,
where do we send it to, Patrick?
What?
Where do we send the picture to?
Oh shit! I guess you can. Damn it. Send it to Patrick at drag357.com. Post it on Race 632. Post it anywhere you want to. Tag us in it and say, hey, put this on the stream. I'll put it on there. So just do it to it. I'm not going to search the internet for you. You send it to me, all right? So with that, I wish everyone a great night until next weekend.
All right, next weekend.
Next week.
Same
7 days.